Hey, greetings, everybody. It looks like we're live. Let me get everything set up on the public side, and we're ready to go. Hey, greetings, everybody. It's Sean Carpenter in Columbus, Ohio. Welcome to another episode of Carp's Corner Conversations here on Facebook Live. Super excited because this one I'm going all the way across the country with my good friend, Katie Lance. What's up, Katie? How are you?
Hey, Sean. It's so good to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this conversation. Two road warriors stuck at home.
Exactly.
Right? And,
Yes, we are.
So, we were just talking in the green room a little bit about kind of how we're having to shift and, think about our business a little differently. And we have been obviously for the last 4 or 5 months, but just off the start, how are you and Paul and the family? How's the kids? You guys all kind of settling in and getting used to living together?
Yes. I mean, so far so good. We're very grateful. We're healthy. We're safe. We're grateful in the sense we've worked from home, remotely for quite some time. We have a virtual team. So in that capacity, we've always been set up, but having our kids home since March has been a little challenging, and we've got school starting back up next week virtually, of course, but we're just going to keep rolling with it and trying to do what everyone's doing, kind of that juggling act.
Well, Tracy, or Katie, you're always so transparent about being a mom and being a wife. Homeschooling, not really homeschooling the kids, but having the kids do school at home. How do you guys kind of balance that out? Do you guys just sort of monitor the kids? Are they checking in? Is there like a time thing? Or are they just kind of doing assignments each day?
Yeah, well, the spring, I feel like, March and April, we were just kind of like thrown into this, like, what's going on, situation. And so we kind of put together a schedule that we tried to follow as much as possible and tried to kind of have them follow. We had like a schedule printed up and put on our refrigerator. So we were kind of all on the same page. Luckily, they're a little bit older. They're 9 and 12. So they're a little bit more, self-sufficient. But this fall, we've been told that things will be a little bit more organized, and not necessarily organized, but I think a little bit more structured from our teachers. And I mean, big shout out to anyone who's a teacher. Holy cow! I can't imagine what they're going through. But yeah, just having a little bit of obviously a schedule and a system, and I think kids really thrive with routines. And knowing when things are going to happen, and just kind of staying on track with things, even as simple as like, when is lunch going to be, and when can we go outside, and when can you go down your electronics and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's been a change for all of us, right? Everyone can kind of play the victim card for a second, saying like, I didn't ask for this. Who
Right.
didn't ask for this? Teachers didn't ask for this either. Teachers that weren't equipped to. How do you teach a curriculum to, in some cases, 7 or 8 year olds through a computer screen, and knowing how impactful it is as a teacher. Part of what you and I both do, Katie, or to sometimes go one-on-one with somebody who you can just tell from the stage or from the front of the classroom that they just aren't getting it.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
and that's a big shift. So congratulations to you guys, and good luck this season. I got a couple college kids at the other end of the spectrum. So now it's just a matter of making sure that they are awake for their classes and ready to go. So right. Katie, for the people that don't know who you are, give us kind of the little background. I've known you for, I'm thinking now, a little over 10 years. But I think most people know you as a social media consultant and speaker, but let's go back before the Inman days. Cause I think a lot of people probably don't even know what you did before Inman. You're based in California, but give us kind of the early Katie Lance story.
The early story. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I recently saw your episode you did with Bill Risser, where he was celebrating his podcast anniversary, and I was one of his very first guests. Yes. So shout out to him. And in episode 3 of his show, I give kind of my whole backstory. So if you're curious about that. But before my Inman days, I've always been passionate about marketing and business. I always sort of had that entrepreneurial spirit. Went to school in Southern California, graduated from Cal State Long Beach, and really got a lot of my start early on in marketing. I worked for Vector Marketing for many years, which I know a lot of folks in real estate are familiar with Cutco. And I was a Cutco sales rep for many, many years. I was a manager. And honestly, that really, I think, honed my skills as far as people skills and how to be a presenter and how to sell and how to work with clients. And, I always say, gosh, if I can sell knives in people's homes, you can do just about anything. And that was a great experience. I worked my way through college. And then before Inman, I worked for a real estate company, and that was kind of my first start into real estate. I got hired by a local boutique real estate broker here in the Bay Area, and I was their marketing director and had a lot of marketing experience, but had never done anything with real estate. And so it was really a eye-opening experience to, working with a company on their brand, but also working with agents day to day. And I mean, I was the gal that you would come over and say, hey, I got to place a Sunday ad. And you would, here's what I got a new listing coming up, you got to help me. I just got a call. And so I think had some great experience for many years, just working with agents one-to-one and really learning, how hard they work and what their business is all about. And then from there, went on to work for Inman for many years, was also brought on to do marketing and was doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And then Brad kind of pushed me to the to the forefront and had the opportunity to do a lot of speaking and got the opportunity to speak all over with Inman Connect, and did a whole bunch of fun stuff with them with social media, helped start the ambassador program that I know you're a big part of to this day, which is awesome. That's like one of the things I'm most proud of. Fast forward to basically 8 years ago, 2012, I got the entrepreneurial bug and decided to go on my own. And so for really the past 8 years, we've been running a social media company here in the San Francisco Bay Area. My husband, Paul, quit his corporate job a few years ago. And so now we are partners in life, partners in business. And our passion is just helping agents and brokers get smarter about social media. That's kind of the heart of everything we do, from speaking to training, our academy, everything we put out there. It's just, it's not the end all and be all. Facebook's not the magic bullet, or anything like that. It's just one more tool in your tool chest. And it's everything like you believe in, as far as just relationships and doing the right thing and being a good person. And it's amazing what comes back to you.
It's kind of neat to see you take that jump, from Vector to real estate. And you've always been kind of around the real estate market. If you think about it, you've been around sales, you've been around salespeople and understand the power of the relationship and follow up and doing what you say you're going to do and setting and meeting expectations. Taking that jump to the entrepreneur side. Let's talk about that for a second. We'll talk about your podcast in a bit, but I'm sure you probably have listened to the podcast, What About Now? What's it called? It's called Why Not Now? And it's all about like that moment you said, why not now? You based in the Silicon Valley area, that Northern California area, so many of the greatest entrepreneurs took a chance on themselves, right? They started in a garage. What made you, and maybe Paul was part of the decision, to sort of say like, I think I want to go out on my own and be a consultant?
I think part of it was, I was sort of at this pivotal point in my career. I had worked at Inman for a number of years. It was an amazing experience. It had opened so many doors for me, and I loved it. And I had felt like I was at this point where, and I think a lot of people feel this at different points in their career, where you feel like, what's next, right? You feel like, is there a next step for me? And as I started to kind of explore, thinking about different organizations, different companies, I knew I wanted to stay in the real estate space. I'd really fallen in love with the industry. And it was just, honestly, after just kind of a lot of soul searching and chatting with a few trusted friends and colleagues, that I was like, maybe I don't want to just work with one brand or one company. Maybe I want to work with a lot of them. Maybe I want to help a lot of people. And I think that was really the heart of it, is being able to serve more people. It's one of the reasons we launched our academy many years ago, was the ability to not just do consulting with a few dozen people, but to be able to serve hundreds and now thousands of people. And at the risk of sounding corny, that's what really gets me fired up, is just being able to serve a lot of people. It's awesome.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the academy, because when you designed Katie Lance Consulting, I'm going to guess there was a piece of that. I want to teach content and strategy and package it in a way that I can teach it to many versus just one-on-one, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our business really started with basically, consulting and speaking. That was sort of my bread and butter, where I was, a paid speaker. I was speaking at a lot of conventions and conferences. And then I was doing a lot of consulting at the brokerage level, franchise level, working with a lot of folks in the leadership of real estate and helping them form their social media strategy. And we were never the company to really, do it for you. We really believe in kind of the philosophy of we'd rather teach you to fish, and teach you how to do it and be a consultant. But it really got to the point where we were working with a number of great clients. And it just felt like, gosh, there's only so many hours in the day. And how can we serve more people, and how can we serve individual agents who may not have a big budget to bring on some sort of consultant? They can't afford one-on-one coaching. They can't afford this. So is there an opportunity? And I also felt like, gosh, there's so much information that's already out there. I mean, you go onto Google and Google social media for real estate. There's probably 10 million things that are out there. A lot of stuff is, a little bit out of date, or maybe it's not relevant. And I just felt like, if agents really need to figure out social media, they're not just going to learn it from a quick blog post or a 2-minute video or webinar. It's really about putting together a comprehensive plan. And so that's kind of where the wheels started turning of how can I help agents put together a plan and a system, just like they have a plan for any other part of their business. If you want to be successful with anything, you've got a plan, right? You got a strategy. So that's kind of where the wheels started turning. And it's been really fun to see it evolve over the years.
Katie, you have a lot of courses. Let me actually do this so you can see at the bottom of the screen. I put up there a link to your courses, katielance.com courses. What are some of the core courses, and what are some of the things you maybe have in the percolation stage right now?
Really, our core is our academy. I mean, we do have a number of individual courses and handbooks and workbooks, and depending on what someone's looking for, if they're looking for help on Facebook ads, or they're looking for help on virtual open houses. We've been doing a lot of training about those, especially recently. But really, honestly, our core is really our academy. And I think a big part of that is because, we really feel like there's a lot of benefit in kind of percolating and being a part of a community for a long period of time. And we have a lot of our academy members who've been with us for years and years because, just like anything else, sometimes it just takes time to, you're at step 1, you're at the beginning stages trying to figure out, what platform to be on. And then you're at step 2, figuring out, okay, I'm going to do some Facebook Lives like Sean's doing, or, then I'm going to start doing podcasts. And how does that all fit together? And then I'm going to add in ads. Like there's all these layers to social media and content strategy. And so, just like anything, I think it takes a little bit of time. And we also find that we've got a really great community. People who join our academy, they have access to all of our coaching and courses. It's a lot like Netflix. So once you become a member, you can binge watch anything you'd like. But we also have a great members only community. And I think that's probably one of the main reasons why people stay around for a long time, because they feel like they're a part of something, and I think that's really powerful. So,
social media certainly gives you the ability to build those relationships further and faster and freer than you could one-on-one. And we got a lot of our good close friends on this call listening. And by the way, guys, just encourage you drop a little thumbs up or a heart if you're a big fan of Katie, like I am. Katie, let's talk about the book. The book, Get Social Smart, came out a couple years ago. It's been an amazing opportunity for you to get in front of people that you never would have. It's been also a great opportunity for you to follow up with people and see the accolades. How was that process, and how has that book impacted your career?
Yeah, it's impacted it in a big way. I actually had a great conversation this morning with 2 other really well-known speakers in the industry, Chelsea Pites and Marky Lemons-Ryle. And the 3 of us actually were talking just literally a couple hours ago about the power of a book. And both of them have published books. I published a book, and I was kind of joking around. I said, it's funny. I mean, over the years, I've published a ton of content, right? Blog posts, videos, podcasts. I mean, there's a lot of content with my name on it. But when you publish a book, when you publish a physical book that people can buy on Amazon and hold in their hands and take a highlighter and scribble and write notes in, like, there's just something about that, right? And even though in this day and age, it's easier really than ever before to self-publish. That's what I've done, is self-publish. I think it really takes your credibility to that next level. And I would just encourage anyone, especially any content creators, no pressure, Sean, but I would definitely encourage you to write a book. But I just think it takes your credibility, your expertise to a whole nother level. When you can say, yes, and in addition, here's a copy of my book, Yeah. And it's affected my career in a lot of ways. I think it's, for me, it's secured additional speaking engagements. It's helped open a lot of doors. It's helped grow our academy. And also it's just a great, experience as well. I wrote the book not necessarily to become a best-selling author, but it was something for me. It was always on my bucket list to do. And now that I've done it, I'm like, all right, I've got a few other book ideas that are percolating that we should probably get out there in the world. But yeah, just from a credibility standpoint, I can't emphasize enough how powerful that is.
That's a neat, and I got one inside me. I think a lot of us do. It's just a matter of putting it together. How long did the process take? You said you self-published. Did you have a coach? Did you have somebody that kind of pushed you along?
It took, I'll be honest with you, it took way longer than it should have. It took probably from the very beginning to actually publishing it was probably about 18 months to maybe even up to 2 years, to be honest. And I blame myself for that, because a big part of that was kind of imposter syndrome. I mean, I honestly really went through this sort of period of like, who am I? Like, who am I to say like, I'm going to write a book? And it was a very odd, humbling experience to go through. And I actually remember putting aside my book for months and months. I was like, I'm not going to touch this. I'm not going to do this. This is ridiculous. And finally I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, who are you not to, right? Like, just get over yourself. And so it was kind of that push to do that. I did end up working with a great editor who helped me kind of, figure out sort of my thoughts and help me kind of get organized. We originally started with kind of auditing a lot of my content to see, because I'd already created so much content. So we kind of started there and said, okay, out of all of this, what could be put into a book? What's missing? And she was a great help, and someone I think having an extra set of hands is certainly a help as well. But now that I've gone through it, I was like, okay, I could do it.
I'll tell you, one of your signature things that I talk about in my presentations that I love directing people to, because good stuff there's no sense in recreating it. Your content grid. You can find it on KatieLance.com. If you are struggling with a content strategy for your social media game, you're just, when that cursor is blinking in Facebook and you're unsure what to put on there, guys, please go to Katie Lance's website and check out her content grid. That's been kind of one of your signature pieces, hasn't it, Katie?
It has. That's where a lot of this really started, was because I've always believed, a lot of this started back when I worked for the real estate company and I started doing social media for them. That was in the very early days. And then when I worked for Inman, I was really working hard on growing their social media strategy. And then of course, going out on my own. But I just always believed that it's so valuable to have content ideas. There's nothing worse than sitting down, and I know you've probably experienced this, where you're like, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to post? Oh, I should post something. I haven't posted something, right? And so just getting organized, and sometimes just getting a little bit of a jump start helps. So yeah, we've had probably tens of thousands of people over the years download it. The content grid is it's a pretty simple spreadsheet, right? But the idea is people print it up. I see this happen all the time. They print it up, they've got it by their laptop, and then a couple times a week when they're sitting down to post something, schedule something, create a video, they've got ideas, on what to post. So it makes a big difference.
Awesome. I sort of was inspired by that. I did a workshop for Stephanie Sursland's group out in Iowa City, and I put together 52 different things you could post. So almost like once a week, and it was kind of fun to come up with those. Yeah. And at first, you get to like 26 and you're like, I can't think of anything else. And you're like, oh, you could do that. And you could do that. And you could do that. Yeah. So, all right, Katie, you are a social media, I'll say expert. You may not say that. You're a social media enthusiast. You're a social media fan. You're a social media influencer for sure. Let's play what I call the channel challenge. I'm going to go through some of the different social media channels. I want you to just give me kind of your first thoughts, maybe a tip on one of them. We're going to do our starting 5 first. Let's start with Facebook.
Okay. I'm only allowed one tip.
No, you can share whatever you want. Just what do you think of Facebook? What's one of the things that comes to mind?
Well, right now there's a lot of noise on Facebook, right? I think that's probably an understatement. Right now,
on all the social channels, there's probably a lot of noise, but yeah, Facebook for sure.
Facebook for sure. And so this is like an oldie but goodie, but one of my favorite tried and true tips that I taught this 10 years ago, and it's still relevant today, and that is using lists. I love using lists. I still look at my lists. I still edit my lists. Those of you listening, if you've never done this before, it's really easy to do. There's actually a specific link that you can go to do this. It's facebook.com/bookmarks/lists. Facebook.com/bookmarks with an S /lists. When you do that, you can create these private lists. You can organize your friends and family, your clients, your prospects. And I mean, it's one of those things where it's an easy way to kind of cut through the noise. So instead of going on Facebook and looking at your 2,000 Facebook friends, you can go right to your client list of 20 people, and you take a few minutes to like, comment, engage with whatever they're posting. And I've been doing that for years and years. Every morning I've got my cup of coffee, and I do Focus 5, which for me means pull up my list, and I try to find at least 5 people that I can meaningfully connect with. And, that doesn't mean just be a drive-by liker, but it means leave a meaningful comment, or like you do, send a text or a video, or, meaningfully connect with people, because honestly, that's half of it right there. That's the part you can't outsource. You can't hand that part off to somebody else. That's you making a connection and building relationships, right?
Yeah. Katie, when I talk about lists, think about this. For the people who maybe don't know what we're talking about, picture the old fashioned car radio before we had digital car radios, right? Where you had to kind of tune the dial. If you're not using lists, you're listening to every channel at once, and it's really noisy and you can't really tune in. But when you use lists, you can actually tune in. And you know how on an old fashioned radio, you'd be close, and then when you turn the dial just a slip more, you're perfect. That's what a list does. It zooms you into the voices and the stories you want to pay attention to. So I have a Florida fans list. So if I want to talk about the Florida Gators, I can talk just to those people that are Florida fans, and I can zoom out all the other people. So I love that tip there. Who's a couple of your favorite follows on Facebook that you just love the way they use the channels? You?
I've been following you for years and years. I love that you are, authentic and engaging. And I think you always have a good mix between what you're doing professionally, what you're doing personally. I'm looking at some of the folks who are, I think they're live with us right now, like Linda Hobkirk. She's out in Arkansas. I think she does an awesome job. Also does a really great job of sort of blending who she is personally as well as what she does professionally. Andrea Geller, I can see, is in the comments, same thing. And I think a lot of the folks that we know who are in this space, it's not that you can't talk about business, because business is a huge part of our life. It's a huge part of our life, but it's not everything we talk about, and I don't think, the people that we kind of connect to, we talk about business in a way where it's not like, hey, look at me, another thing I did. It's more about a passion for serving people, of why we love what we do, and kind of sharing our successes and sharing the successes of our clients, but also talking about, like you with your kids, and, for us, it's our boys and our cat, and, it's just that balance between that personal and business.
Here's a great question from Abby Parsons with Cole Banker Tomlinson up in Spokane. She says she gets overwhelmed with lists because she's not sure how specific. I love getting really granular down to the list. Katie, without giving away who's on those lists. And by the way, guys, if you put someone on a list, they don't know they're on a list. So you could literally make a left-handed realtors list, or realtors who wear glasses list.
Yeah, exactly. It's private. It's private.
What are some of the names of some of your lists? Do you do it by company, maybe because as a speaker you want to zoom in on, John Mangus's company in, Remax in Toledo or whatever, or are you talking about church friends, or what are some of the things you're doing? It's funny. I just mentioned John's name and he commented. That's funny.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. John is actually another great example. John does these Monday Mojos. He's been doing for years, which I absolutely love his videos. He does
a great blend of video and Facebook. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So I've kind of gone a little list crazy. So I do have a lot of personal lists. Like I have for like high school friends, sorority sisters, neighbors, things like that. But professionally, because I'm connected to so many realtors, this might sound a little crazy, but I actually have lists of realtors in every state. Cool. Yeah. Because for me, it's a really easy way, because I get asked a lot, hey, do you know a realtor in so-and-so, or who do you know, or whatever. And so it's really easy for me to go into Facebook and say, my friends who live in Ohio, my friends who live in DC, and it just will pull up, the 12 realtors in that city, or whatever it might be. So because I'm connected to a lot of realtors, that's one of the things I do. I also have a client list. I have an academy list of people in our academy, prospects. And I always say for agents, I at a minimum, I would say get a client list, either people you're working with now or you've worked with in the past, and a prospect list, people you potentially might work with like in the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, good tip, Abby. I know you're an active mom, and you're also a skier. I would have a skier list. I would have a mom's list.
Yeah.
I would have an outdoor enthusiast list, and you can have people on multiple lists. They could be on the mom list and on the skier list and on the client list, and that way you can talk to different people. All right, let's move on. Let's go to my favorite social media channel, the one I check first and last at the end of each day, Twitter.
Yeah. Well, I love that you said that, because I think not a whole lot of people are talking about Twitter these days, or if they're talking about it, they're talking about it from like, that's where everybody goes to complain. And Twitter is so much more than that.
It's such a great stream,
It is, even to this day, Twitter is really one of the only things that is really kind of in real time. If you want to find out something breaking, you want breaking news, like, it's not Facebook, because Facebook could be today, could be yesterday, could be something you saw 2 days ago, but Twitter's pretty much live, and in the moment. They have their own algorithm now, but it's, I would say, for the most part, the most live out of anything. And I think actually Twitter, especially for agents, is also a great opportunity for lists. So they also have the ability to use lists, and your prospects and clients, they may not be active on Twitter, but I have always loved Twitter, because Twitter's a great place for me to curate content. So for example, I have a list on Twitter, a real estate news list, and it has like, I think 25, maybe 30 of my favorite places to get news in real estate, right? It's like Inman, NAR, like a bunch of different blogs and podcasters that I like to listen to. And so again, instead of looking at the, 5,000 people I follow on Twitter, I can, a couple times a week, go to my real estate news list, scan it really quick and go, ooh, that's happening. Ooh, this was passed. Oh, HUD did this. Oh, this webinar is coming up. And if there's something, that I want to share, I'll retweet it, or I'll click on the link and then I'll share that on Facebook, right? Or it'll spark a conversation that I want to post maybe somewhere else. So yeah, I love lists.
Quick user tip on Twitter, guys. A lot of people are staying away from Twitter because of the politics. You can mute specific words. And what I mean by that is you go to your settings and mute words. You can't do that on Facebook, but you can mute words. And so I basically muted any word that has to do with anything to do with politics. Republican, Democrat, Trump, Clinton, Biden. I mean, I can just, and so those words if that word's in a tweet, it doesn't even show up in my stream. It's a great way to kind of quiet the noise a little bit. Any specific fun Twitter followers, not in the real estate industry, Katie, any just personal ones that you kind of like to follow because they're a celebrity or they're funny or...
Well, I love musicals personally, and I'm so sad for all the artists and performers who are just really struggling right now. So, I'm a big Hamilton fan, so I follow that. And what's kind of neat right now about Twitter is you can actually follow certain topics. So I am following like the Broadway topic, the musicals. I just find that that's, for me, there is so much noise out there, and I do think it's important to stay up to date with what's going on. And I also think it's important, if you are passionate about something, you can take a stand. It's okay. You can do so in a respectful way. But I also think that there's a place for some positivity, like what brings you joy during this time. And that's, for me, that's been one thing. So I've been following lots of different musicals, and also some of the late night folks, like Jimmy Fallon and, that whole group of folks. It's been entertaining to see how they are adapting.
Following stand-up comics is a great follow, because they're testing out a lot of their new material in short sound bites. Conan O'Brien is a great one. Conan O'Brien tweets usually once a day. It's usually because it's only one tweet. It's a funny, poignant, on point. All right, let's go to our third in the starting lineup. Let's go to Instagram.
Yeah. I love Instagram. I'm a huge fan of Instagram. And I would say right now, Instagram stories, if you're not taking advantage of Instagram stories, there's big opportunities. I see a lot of agents who are just posting in their feeds, or just posting listings, or maybe some, community stuff here and there. But like your stories, that's a way to kind of bring people, I think, like more behind the scenes into what you do. But I also think what's really unique about stories is when you post a story. So first of all, a story, as you know, only lasts 24 hours. But what I really like about it is that when someone comments on my story, now they're in my DMs. So now we're having a private one-on-one conversation. And that is where relationships are built, right? Relationships are not necessarily built when you post something and 100 people comment. Yes, there's a little bit of relationship building that happens there. There's engagement, of course. But so much of relationship building in business is one-to-one, right? And so that is one of the things I love about it. I know, I'll get up and I'll open up my Instagram, And yeah, it's great to see some public comments, but I love when I can see, wow, I have 20 private messages on Instagram. That's 20 one-on-one conversations I can have with people who potentially at some point we might work together, right? So I think that's one of the things not a lot of people I feel like are talking about. The same thing happens with Facebook stories. Facebook stories may not be getting as much traction yet as Instagram stories, but when I comment on your Facebook story, that goes right to Facebook Messenger. That's a one-to-one conversation, right? So I think there's a lot of power in that.
Yeah, the power of the comment, guys. It's so easy on Facebook to scroll through and click and just touch the screen and give it a heart.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if Katie posts a picture of her son playing baseball and 155 people give it a heart, but 3 people comment, right? I say, hey, I hope he got a hit in that, in that at bat or whatever. She's going to forget the 155 likes, and she's going to pay attention to the 3 people that comment. Right. Yeah. And so the comments on Instagram, I think, are so important, especially on stories and on, it's amazing how intimate those can be. And at the right time, they just sometimes really, really matter. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
The visual nature of it, obviously, it's fun and they're constantly evolving. So it's guys, if you're not using Instagram, you're missing out, just not necessarily from a sales point, just a life point. Let's go to our fourth in the starting 5, LinkedIn, kind of underutilized from a social standpoint, but it's still a very valuable tool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've often said for years, LinkedIn is like the set it and forget it network that a lot of people set it up. They haven't done a whole lot with it. But LinkedIn is really important. I mean, when you get Googled, LinkedIn is usually one of the first things that still comes up. It's usually like the top 5 of things that come up. So, if your profile's out of date or there's not a whole lot of information about you, there's the perception that you're not in business, right? So I think there's a couple things, just from a profile standpoint, you want to make sure your profile is up to date. You've got an updated photo. You've got updated information about your expertise and your designations. Personally, I like to I literally put on my calendar, usually once, sometimes twice a year, just to check my LinkedIn, just to make sure everything's up to date, because things change, right? Maybe you want to update things, whatever it might be. I also think with LinkedIn it's a great place to, talk about business, not necessarily, I think, promote your listings. I love to blog on LinkedIn. I think that's kind of an underutilized piece of real estate. A lot of times if I've got a blog post that's performing really well, or a video that's done really well, if it's an evergreen piece of content, if it's, valuable then, but it's still valuable today, we might repurpose that and turn that into a blog post for LinkedIn. Great idea. So I think and what we see are like the people who are doing that really well, they're talking about things kind of from a leadership perspective. So anyone listening to this, I just would encourage you to think about, again, not just blogging about your listings, but things like, what have I learned in real estate over the last 20 years? Or if I had to do it all over again, this is what I would do. Or these are the 5 things we look for when we're bringing on new agents. Like, I think just kind of shifting it from a, sell mentality to more of like a leadership piece of content, I think is valuable.
Love it. All right, let's go to our final starting 5. People are going to be surprised by this because a lot of people don't think of it as a social channel. I think it's one of the most important ones. That's YouTube.
Yes. Oh, I'm glad you brought up YouTube. Yes. So we've been doing a ton of training and talking about YouTube. And I have to admit, you may have heard me talk about this before, but YouTube used to just be the place, for me at least, where we like housed our videos, but we didn't really do a whole lot with them. It was like the dusty library where we just stuck stuff and like, that's about
closet
it.
Under the stairs. Yes.
Totally. It's like shove it in there. That's where it goes. Right. But no, YouTube can be really powerful. And we really made the decision about 3 years ago to be more consistent. Not surprising. Gosh, that makes a big difference, right? To be consistent. We launched the Get Social Smart show, which we've been doing, for about 3 years now. It's a show that comes out every Wednesday on YouTube as well as Facebook. It's usually, we had a new episode come out today. And it's always like, 3 to 4 minutes, a couple quick tips. And what's interesting about YouTube, a couple things. YouTube is the 2nd largest search engine. It's owned by Google. And, so from a searchability standpoint, we find that, we're getting people who find us for the first time from YouTube. People who, they have no idea who I am, but they found me because of YouTube, right? Which is really exciting. And I also find with YouTube that it just takes time. It's like anything else. You've got to be really patient. It is way different than Facebook or Instagram or any of these social media channels. But the thing that's the same is consistency. YouTube really rewards consistency. So my advice would be, think about not just video once in a blue moon, but can you create a show? Can you create episodic content where people find you and they're like, oh, wait, he's on episode 25? And I got to go back. Like, I like this guy, you know?
Yeah. And I know you say this to agents as well. You don't have to be in front of the camera. You can you can just tour of your cities, tour of your parks, in your town, your dog parks, you know, it doesn't always have to be real estate. It can be something you really are excited about. And I think that much with blogging, you know, it's another voice out there that people might find you because you are a backpacker, because you're a runner, because you do house chores, things like that. And YouTube, and the reason I say YouTube is a social channel a lot of people don't think about is my mom's 84 years old. She doesn't tweet, she doesn't Facebook, she doesn't Instagram, but she can watch videos on YouTube.
Yes.
Right. And
she probably Google stuff. I mean, my parents are Googling stuff all the time. And what usually comes up? Videos are usually the top search. You know. Okay,
let's go 3 off the bench if we're playing basketball theme. Just quick thoughts on these. Let's go Snapchat, TikTok, and Pinterest. Let's start with Snapchat. Just a couple quick thoughts on Snapchat.
I've deleted it from my phone.
Okay.
I think Snapchat is fun. I just don't. For me, a lot of the people we work with are not active on Snapchat.
I agree.
So it was great. I think Instagram has actually borrowed a lot of those great features, and with Instagram stories, that's kind of what Snapchat is. So that kind of ties into what I'm going to say with TikTok. I think TikTok is super fun, super entertaining to watch. I'm on there. I have not created anything. I'm just have an account. Right. And it comes down to like, where are your clients? Like, where are they hanging out? If you have a clientele that are hanging out on Snapchat and TikTok, then you could definitely consider being there. But for me, that's not really where our people are hanging out. So
I agree. I think it's a lot very similar to stand-up comedian. Like, who's your audience?
Yeah.
What kind of jokes are you going to tell?
Yeah.
What are you, a storyteller comedian? Are you a punchline comedian? And TikTok is that, and once again, you can't be TikTok and then say, but my other agents or my other clients can't look at this. That's got to be part of who you are, right? It's
yes. And that's the biggest thing we're seeing right now is people who they're on TikTok, but that's their persona, quote unquote, their professional persona over here. There's this disconnect. And I think now more than ever, trust is more important than ever before. So you've got to be consistent. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, wherever, just be consistent and don't try to be all things to all people. Like my target person that we work with probably isn't a TikToker, and that's totally okay. Now
that's okay. Yeah.
That's okay. Nothing against it. I think TikTok's super fun to watch, but at least as of right now, who knows what might happen in the future.
Sure.
And Pinterest, as you mentioned, I still like Pinterest. I think the biggest value for Pinterest for agents is in the traffic that you can drive to your site, especially if you are active on YouTube, if you've got a YouTube channel or you've got a blog. I find we get a ton of referral traffic to our website from Pinterest.
Interesting.
So we have a board on Pinterest of all of our videos. We have a board of all of our blog posts. And for whatever reason.
So you're putting up a still picture of your video on your board.
Actually we're pinning. So YouTube and Pinterest have kind of this, symbiotic relationship basically. And you can basically you can take the YouTube link, pin that link to a Pinterest board. And so if people subscribe to that Pinterest board, they click on it and they can actually watch the YouTube video within Pinterest.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It still counts as a view, but they're watching it within Pinterest, which is kind of cool. So, and it has a long shelf life. I look at the things that people are clicking on from Pinterest are stuff that we posted months ago, sometimes even years ago, which is crazy. Things that people are finding. So from a sort of a long-term searchability, if you're a content creator, I think Pinterest can be one extra place that you can get some referral traffic from.
Well, that was a good rundown on some of the best. Let's segue to your podcast. You've been doing it now for 16 months. It's hard to believe that you are on your 16th month, but your content is great and it's fresh and it comes out every week. What's been your experience with that? Just one more thing that you've done and one more thing to do each week. But
Yeah, no, I've been super happy that we've done it. It's crazy that it's been 16 months. Anytime we embark on any type of like content venture, it's definitely a big decision because it's not just, as you know, it's not just creating the content. There's a whole system that we have for it. And I think that the things that we've done really well is we systemize what we do. We systemize what we do before, as far as what does that content look like, and when am I doing that, and who's editing it, and who's getting it uploaded, and like just the whole process. There's I'd be lying if I said, oh yeah, it's really easy, anybody could do it. And yes, anybody could do it, but having a system makes a really, really big difference. So I think what's been really fun, with the podcast, I originally launched it because I felt like I had some things I wanted to share that were outside of just social media. And, obviously that's still my bread and butter. That's still that's our business. That's what we're super passionate about. But the podcast has been a fun way to talk about things, beyond social media. So we talk about, usually once or twice a month, I'm talking about something personal, from, being a mom, parenting woes, tips. Not that I'm an expert, but just my own experience. We talked about, what it's like to work with my husband. And then, we also do some interviews from time to time. So a lot of times I'll do an interview. We've been doing this whole author series where I'm bringing on authors and I'm interviewing them on Facebook Live, and then we repurpose it. So I'm a big believer in repurposing content, and we'll repurpose it and put on our podcast. So it's been a nice blend between personal, business. I've also shared just some kind of behind the scenes about how we think about our business, how we hire, who, do we work with independent contractors and employees? Like, what does that look like? Just kind of like taking people behind the scenes. What's it like to be on the road speaking? How do I get gigs? Like conversations that I felt like didn't really have a place on YouTube, because for me, YouTube is about sort of my social media tips. So the podcast has been a great, great way to kind of expand my audience. So it's been fun.
I love it, and it's one of my must listen tos every week. It's yours, Bill Risser's, Lee Brown's. I mean, and John Sanders has the John Sanders show. He's with Chicago Title in Las Vegas. I mean, I zoom in on some real estate ones just to once again keep my finger on the pulse of the market. But yours is always fun and fresh and relevant, and so keep it up. I'm proud of you on that. Let's talk before we get to the famous speed round at the end. Let's talk about something we both love and we're passionate about, and that's speaking to audiences, both real estate and just general audiences. We're both missing the stage, not necessarily missing the travel. We talked off stage. I miss the travel because I just have fun going to new cities and new breweries and golf courses and sporting events. You've always been good about, if you can speak and get home that night to your family, you've always been good about doing that. What are some of the things you really enjoy about speaking?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bittersweet right now. I mean, I'm so grateful that I have this time with my kids. I've been home more than I think I've ever been, and but I'm a little sad. I miss being on the road, and I like the travel, and I think you have to at least like travel to some regard. Otherwise, you're not going to do it at all. So I do think that's fun. I've always loved travel, and you see different hotels in different cities and meet different people. But as far as speaking, for me, it's never been like, oh, look at me, I'm on a stage. It's just been more about how can you impact people. And as much as I love technology and tools like this, like Facebook Live and Zoom and StreamYard and all these tools, it's just not the same. It's not the same as being in front of people and shaking hands and doing selfies and seeing a visible response from people. And, there's also always crazy things that happens. The projector doesn't work, or the lights go out, or the smoke detector goes off, or whatever. But there's just something about, being in front of a group of people and being able to share something. And there's nothing like getting off stage and somebody saying something like, I never thought about it that way, or I didn't think I could do it. And then what you shared, X, Y, and Z, like, oh my gosh, that really inspired me. Like, that's awesome, and so I miss it for sure. And so right now we're doing, a ton of virtual keynotes and virtual speaking and lots of webinars. Yeah. And we've always done a lot of virtual training, which is, we're just doing a lot more of it than ever before.
Katie, we've both been in our share of Marriott ballrooms and, convention centers.
Just a few.
What are some of the coolest venues that you've had a chance to speak in? Any that jump out like, oh my gosh, there's one place in some city. Like, what are some cool spaces you've been in?
Well, I think probably one of the coolest spaces was a few years ago, actually with Coldwell Banker, I got a chance to speak at Lambeau Field.
Really?
Which was pretty amazing. Now, I wasn't on the field, but like the facilities right there. Yeah, they have these suites and ballrooms, and to be able to see the Vince Lombardi trophy, and that was pretty amazing. And just to sort of be in Packers Nation. I'm not necessarily a Packers fan, but just to see, that love in that community and what that town is all about was, and as a sports guy, I'm sure you can.
I've done the Ravens. I've done the Ravens Stadium. I've done Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati and the Blue Jackets arena here in Columbus. Yeah, that's cool. What else? Any other like fun? I was in Walla Walla, Washington, and the owner of the company up there has his own theater. It's called the Powerhouse Theater. It literally is they converted an old powerhouse, so it's an old fashioned theater. Super cool.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
I think the other one that really stood out to me, I did a few speaking engagements. Ironically, I think this is also in Wisconsin, in the Dells of Wisconsin, and it was the middle of winter, so getting out there was a little challenging. But I spoke. They have these indoor water parks, which I had never seen in California, but literally
Kalahari.
Yeah, Kalahari, exactly. It was like this indoor. I'm like, this is crazy, and it's like snowing outside. People are walking around in bathing suits, and I didn't give a speech at the water park, but it was in the same building. But yeah, it's funny how a lot of places, a lot of ballrooms can feel the same. So when you go somewhere different, it definitely stands out for sure.
A different vibe. I got to speak with Kim Miner's group in Northwest Arkansas for Remax Results last fall, and I told her, I said, I'll do it, but we can't do it at the Board of Realtors. I've been there a couple of times, and it's a great building, as you probably know. But I said, I want to do someplace unique and fun. So she put us at the Benton County Quail Barn out in the woods.
Wow.
We did kind of a country theme. It was hunting, fishing, and selling every day. And it was so much fun. I got to wear camouflage when I spoke. It was so much fun. So
That's awesome.
let's take you off the stage before we finish up here, Katie. What are some events that you've been to as an attendee that you would recommend people maybe in our circle, in the real estate circle, could benefit from or would just enjoy to not be there with their real estate hat on?
I think one of the best events I've attended many years in a row is Social Media Marketing World. And I unfortunately missed it this past year because I had another speaking engagement, but I had attended that many times over and over again. Social Media Marketing World is put on by Social Media Examiner, and it's been fascinating every time I've ever attended. I've also had the opportunity to speak there a couple times.
It's in San Diego, so you can't beat that, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm, I don't know, maybe they'll go virtual this year. I'm not sure, but I think it's really interesting to be able to see what other companies and organizations outside of real estate are doing. I always feel like I'm sort of straddling 3 different industries. There's real estate, there's social media, and there's speaking, and they're each kind of overlap each other. They're very similar but different. And so, as far as from a social media and what's happening with content and video, and just kind of being on the cutting edge of what's happening and being in the room with so many different types of people, that was an awesome event. I also attended a really good event a couple years ago called Heroic Public Speaking, which was awesome, just to kind of hone my chops as a speaker. It's something I've been really passionate about the last couple of years, is just getting better, improving my stage presence and storytelling. And I feel like if someone's going to hire you to speak, whether it's, in person, whether it's virtually, you have a responsibility to show up 100% and be prepared, and so I've been, trying to, hone my craft. And actually the founder of Heroic Public Speaking, Michael Port, he's got a great podcast and a great book as well. So for any budding speakers who who want to get better at their craft, they have some really great resources.
Awesome. Okay, let's get to the speed round, and then let's get you on your way. You got probably stuff to do. And guys, if you've enjoyed this conversation with Katie, give her some hearts. Click on the bottom of your screen and give some hearts or some thumbs up. She shared some awesome little tips today. All right, here's the speed round, Katie, the famous Sean Carpenter Carp Conversation speed round. No wrong answers.
Okay,
and
I'm a little nervous.
You don't have to give one-word answers, but let's start it off with an easy one. What's your favorite vacation spot? Maui. Okay. Your favorite band or musician?
Oh, favorite band or musicians? Gosh, I'm awful with music because I'm the kind of person who loves music, but I never know who it is.
That's why you struggle with lost lyrics, right?
Exactly. That's exactly why. So, just a quick example. Yesterday, I was listening to the best of the '90s on iTunes. So, I love 80s and 90s music. I would say recently, Bruno Mars. I'm listening to Bruno Mars a lot, and Taylor Swift.
Okay. We'll accept both those answers.
Thank you.
Katie, the movie that you would say you've watched the most?
Top Gun.
Okay. All right. That's a good one. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Anything chocolate. Yeah, anything with chocolate in it.
You got a good ice cream store there in Pleasanton?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's, Cold Stone, Stone Creamery. But yeah, I also love Ben and Jerry's. That's been on kind of heavy rotation during quarantine. So yeah.
Luckily, I like ice cream, but I don't eat it all the time. Bill Risser, our buddy Bill Risser, is a huge ice cream fan. But ice cream is one of those things that when you have it, you're like, oh my God, this is so good.
Yes.
It's probably good that you don't eat it all the time.
A little addicting.
Here's a good one, Katie. Advice from your mom or dad that you still heed?
Oh boy, advice from my mom or dad. Probably don't be all things to all people. That's probably the biggest thing that I learned from them and my grandparents growing up. You can't be all things to all people. And that has helped in our business big time.
Are your mom and dad still alive?
Yes, they are.
I'm sure they're very proud of your success. And now that I say that, I see them in your stories when you guys do holidays.
Yes, they live very close to us. So and they're part of our quarantine bubble. So we've seen them pretty often, which has been fun. Yeah.
Are you a pet owner? And if so, what kind of pets?
Yes. So we have a cat. We got a cat, Rex, a year ago, and he is the highlight of many of our Instagram posts and Facebook posts. And I've been posting quite a lot of crazy shenanigans that he gets into. So, but it's great. It's great having a little fur baby.
Bonus question, and be honest, who is Rex's favorite in the house?
Well, me, of course. Hello.
Is that the same answer the three other boys would give?
Of course, yes.
Okay. All right.
It depends on who's cuddling with him. That's his favorite at the moment.
Exactly. Katie, your ideal weekend, what would it involve?
Outside of quarantine?
Exactly.
Probably a little bit of sleeping in, because that's always a nice thing. I love the beach. That's why Maui is one of my favorite places. Obviously, we can't get there, on a quick trip away, but we live about an hour from the beach. So probably going to the beach, just relaxing, family. I'm a pretty low key person. So, I just love, we've been doing a lot of family time, of course, but they're my favorite people to hang out with, So, I would say beach time, a little bit of, good meal. And
you guys have been known to sneak away to Disneyland every once in a while, right?
We have, yeah. We're big Disney fans. Love Disneyland. We had the opportunity to go on a Disney cruise last summer, which was like a huge bucket list item for us. And I'm a big Disney nerd.
Good. Three more. The last show or series that you binge watch?
Oh, last show or series we binge watch. Gosh. Probably Breaking Bad. We finally watched Breaking Bad, and that is intense but really good. I don't know if you've ever watched it.
It's my favorite show. It is. Okay. I think it is the best character development show I've ever seen. And Better Call Saul is well done as well. All right, two more. You just mentioned one of the things you've already taken off your bucket list. What is something still on your bucket list?
Really travel. I've never been to Europe. So at some point I would love to go to Paris. That's on my bucket list. Also Australia. I've never been to Australia. So those are Europe, lots of places in Europe I'd like to go to, but also Australia and New Zealand. Those are two big bucket list items for me. Yeah,
Australia for sure. And New Zealand or Scotland and Ireland would be for me as well. Last one, Katie, what does success mean to you? I'm not looking for the Webster's dictionary definition. What is Katie Lance's definition of success?
I just think being happy, honestly, being happy with your life. I just did a Facebook Live last week with a good friend of both of ours, Deborah Trapin. Yeah. And her and I talked about less hustle and more heart. And, you don't have to kill yourself, to be doing what you love. You don't have to kill yourself to, we feel very blessed in the sense that, you get to a point where you don't want to work 70, 80 hours a week. So how do you get to a point where you can work smarter, not harder, and, have that time with your family? Because ultimately you don't get that time back. I mean, people always said to me when my kids were little, like, it's going to go by so fast, just wait. And they were right. I mean, we're halfway through it, and, your kids are in college, and I mean, it's like, boom, it goes like that. So, I think happiness, having quality of time, I think time is the biggest gift that you can give anybody. So,
yeah, that's a good answer.
I feel blessed to be able to do what we do and be able to be able to have that,
Katie, this has been a blast. And before we sign off, let me have you push one more thing. You have a webinar coming up tomorrow, I believe. There's a little quick link at the bottom of the screen.
Oh, you're awesome. Thank you.
Tell us about what's on that webinar and how people can sign up. Obviously, they can sign up at that link, but what if they want to learn more? Give a little preview.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. If you go to katielance.com/August webinar, we are doing a free webinar tomorrow. And basically, I'm sharing some of my 5 biggest tips for making the most of your social media strategy going forward, and really kind of finishing the last part of the year big. I mean, we're in August, which is crazy. So, we're past that midway point, and we're going to talk about, I'm going to share some of my tips for time blocking. I'm going to share some of my tips for how I repurpose content. We're going to talk a little bit about YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And so anyone who maybe has been struggling a little bit with what to post, what to say these days, how to really finish strong, and especially do so without spending a whole lot of money, because that's a big thing that we really believe, is that you don't have to spend a whole lot of money. Facebook ads are great, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of things you can do that don't cost anything. So we're going to dive into that tomorrow.
Fantastic. Katie, you're one of the best in the business. I love that your passion and enthusiasm shows through, whether it's through the typed in words on social, whether it's through the pictures, the stories, your videos, your podcasts, and your book, and certainly your stage presence. Thank you for everything you've done for our industry. I'm glad to call you a friend. And for everybody else out there, build relationships, solve problems, and have fun. Don't forget, next week, another Carp's Corner conversation with a client of mine, and you guys are going to want to tune in for this one. His name's Michael Bennett. He's a young black man. We're going to have a conversation with a older white guy and a younger black guy, and how we can start working together in this world. Katie, you had a great conversation a few weeks ago with Chelsea and with Marky. We need more conversations like that, guys. That's going to be Carp's Corner conversation next Monday. Look for me to post it on Facebook. So on behalf of Katie Lance, I'm Sean Carpenter, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Sean.